facility. Chuck Cooperstein was there earlier. Of course, North Carolina is hammering Marquette by 29 right now. Chuck also did the broadcast. Nets and Mavericks, what a game that was. Craig Smoke, Paul Catalina, and David Smoke. Coop, let's start with what you've seen today. Richmond pulls off the biggest first banger. Georgia State giving Gonzaga everything they need. Carolina looks incredibly impressive. Your thoughts about the first sessions?
Well, with Iowa, the thing that it's, again, another 5-12 upset.
Yep.
And the thing that, of course, I didn't figure on, which you should always figure on, is the 5 seed that comes in as a 5 seed as red hot like Iowa was. At some point, that team is not going to be able to sustain it. And oftentimes it happens in that first game. And so it was for Iowa today. And I hate it because I really want to see more Keegan Murray. I love watching him play. But he's gone. And, Chris Mooney is a terrific coach and knew he was going to have him ready, and they did. I love Baylor. I love how they played today. Just love how they got into it, never letting off the state to even think that they were going to have a chance to win the game. And Carolina's playing great right now. They're shooting it great. They're shooting their three-pointers out of sight. They made 11 in the first half. But as is the case with Carolina, you know what? You can get a game like this, or you can get a game like they played against Duke the first time they played against them, where they were not even in the game, and it was over in about 4 minutes. If Carolina is on their game, Saturday could be very interesting with Carolina and Baylor. But I have more faith in Baylor keeping it together than Carolina does. So we'll see. And I'm surprised that Gonzaga is struggling. I love their team, but there is kind of that funny mix with Holmgren and Timmy. It doesn't always seem comfortable. I think they'll get their act going here in the second half. At least I saw a little bit before it came down to this quiet spot to talk to you. And it looked like they were starting to pick things up. But, they're a great scoring team. They average 86 a game. I know that Georgia State could hold them to a 35 in the first half. That's pretty good, and maybe a bit of nerves for Gonzaga. I know they've had that in the past. The first game has been a nervy game for them, at least for a while. But I have a feeling they're going to figure that out, too.
Chuck, is this North Carolina team, though? I mean, the way that they've played the last stretch down the season is almost, can we forget about some of those early mess-ups they had because they've been so locked in lately?
Well, yeah, but then they got blown out by Virginia Tech in the quarters, right? The ACC quarters. Right? They got handled. They lost by 20. And now, granted, Virginia Tech went on, or that was in the semis, and they went on. Virginia Tech went on and beat Duke in the finals and won the tournament. But again, it was a 20-point game. So, I mean, again, it seems to be really a feast or famine deal for them. But they've got the OUX Brady Manick able to spread the floor as a 5. If Thamba's matched up on him, is he able to pull him away from the basket, or is he going to be is Thamba going to be matched with Baycott and deal with that? And obviously, look, if Caleb Love is shot out of sight here in the first half, he's been great. So it's intriguing just because you don't know what you're going to get from Carolina. You do know, for the most part, what you're going to get from Baylor.
Chuck, did you have much of an opportunity to watch Michigan and Colorado State? I mean, the Richmond upset's the one that everybody's going to be talking about right now, but, I mean, that was an 11-seed Michigan over a 6-seed Colorado State. Maybe the name value doesn't make it seem like as much of an upset, but they doubled them up there basically in the second half.
Yeah, I didn't get to see much of that game. I listened to a lot of the first half of the game driving over to Fort Worth. And it seemed like Colorado State was pretty well in control of things and, having things go their way. But, when you have a big like Dickens, that Michigan has, you can play through him. And it's not that Michigan is untalented, but Michigan also is one of those teams that they didn't play very well at the end of the year. And, it could be somewhat questioned whether or not they even belonged in the field, let alone not even have should they have played in the play-in game instead of Rutgers last night. But listen, they obviously delivered in the second half, and let's see what happens with them going forward. But I'm intrigued now. Mostly right now for Saturday with Baylor and Carolina, and just what that all means. Because again, Carolina is the X factor here. I think we know what Baylor's going to be. You know, Baylor got itself in the tournament, and right from the get-go, they're ready to go. What type of Carolina team are they going to get?
Coop, do you have a special, separate dictionary for Luka Doncic? Do you have, like, words that you have to kind of now go make? And I know that Dinwiddie made the shot, but it was a pass from a star that could have tried to take the shot. Your thoughts about what the Mavericks are doing right now?
Well, I think I said a couple weeks ago, I'm paid to describe, and I'm rapidly running out of ways to describe what I'm seeing. What Luka is doing is ridiculous. He's leading the league in scoring since January 28th. He's averaging 10 rebounds a game in that time, and 8.5 assists. And he's making the right play. He's playing under control, and he brings the game to him. Nobody's going to speed him up. Nobody's going to make him do things that he doesn't want to do. And it's to his credit that he trusts his teammates enough that if he makes a play and they're where they're supposed to be and he passes them the ball, that those guys are going to make a shot and are going to make them look good. And that's pretty well what we've seen here now for the better part of 2 months. I don't know that if people realize this, but only the Phoenix Suns have a better record than the Mavericks since December 31st. I mean, it's pretty hard to believe when you consider how they started the season, but they're that team right now, and there is some magic around that team. They won 15 games this year when trailing by 10. They were down 14 in the first minute of the fourth quarter last night, but they don't get rattled, and they just keep playing, and they just keep coming, and they're making things happen to the point where if it's late in the game, clutch time inside of 5 minutes, they just believe right now they're going to win, and they're shocked when they don't. And given where they were at the beginning of the season in those situations to where they are now, it is nothing short of remarkable.
Coop, would this year, if New York does not change their restrictions, would be one of the rare years where you want to play a team like Brooklyn actually in their stadium because you're guaranteed not to see Kyrie Irving?
Well, it's definitely better when you don't have to play against Kyrie. I know from the Mavericks standpoint, he had a 47-point game against them with Boston. He had a 45-point game against them last year with Brooklyn. He's an incredible offensive player, and we all saw that. Another example of that on Tuesday night when we went for 60. It makes it a whole lot easier. And let's face it, Kyrie is playing last night. There's no way the Mavericks deployed the defense that they did and going with the double team on Durant every time he caught the ball to make him give up the ball and then ultimately have him become a volume shooter as opposed to being the arguably most efficient scorer that this game has ever seen. Yes, it would be. It's a lot easier to play against Brooklyn without Kyrie, but Durant still has so much firepower. And as we saw against the Nets on Sunday, he went for 53 on Sunday. It's not like Kevin Durant has forgotten how to score. But at the same time, you give credit to the Mavericks for the defense they deployed to kind of change the game up a bit. Force other players to have big games. And let's face it, Goran Dragic had his best game of the season last night. Bruce Brown has been playing great for the Nets really over the last month. But you know what? You'll take your chances with Bruce Brown as opposed to taking your chances with Kevin Durant, right? I mean, there are just some things you're going to have to live with. And they did. And listen, fortunately, there's a last-second shot that was made that makes this all look a whole lot better.
Coop, is kind of sticking with the Nets in a way. Spencer Dinwiddie was a Brooklyn Net just a couple years back. Ends up going to the Wizards, and then, of course, comes over to Dallas in the Kristaps Porzingis trade just back in February. He's been on the team a little over a month, back-to-back game winners. What have been your impressions of Spencer Dinwiddie in a Mavs uniform?
He's made me do a complete 180 on the trade because at the time I was not a big fan of the trade. I wanted to see the whole Doncic-Porzingis thing play out and see if it could really work. But the Mavericks decided clearly that availability is the most important ability, and KP wasn't nearly available enough. And look, even after he got traded, he still didn't play for about 3 weeks. So, and then Dinwiddie was having a terrible year, and he's always been kind of a volume scorer, and a volume player. But now, I mean, he's playing with incredible efficiency, and obviously he's playing with brass cojones, and he's giving you that playoff vibe that every team that believes that they have a chance to do something in the playoffs has to have. And he's just done it in a huge way, and he's certainly given Jason Kidd a whole lot to think about as far as his rotation going forward. When Reggie Bullock gets back from the personal reasons that he's missed the last couple of games, does Reggie start? Does he go back in the starting lineup where he's played better than he's played coming off the bench? Or does he bring, does he keep Dinwiddie in the starting lineup? He's been so good. And that doesn't even begin to account for what happens when and if Tim Hardaway gets healthy, which will probably be in time for the first round of the playoffs. How is he deployed? How does that all work? With Josh Green's growth, too. So, I mean, there's a whole lot of things going on that have to be considered. But the bottom line right now is that the Mavericks have a lot of things going in their favor, not the least of which is that intangible that they really believe that every night they're going on the floor that they're going to win. That there's no negativity around that program right now.
Did they believe that when Porzingis was on the roster?
I'm not sure. I mean, there was a maintenance issue with Porzingis. Right. There really was. And, just from the get-go, the season when Jason Kidd was saying, we want to get Porzingis playing like he played with the Knicks. Well, how he played with the Knicks was a lot of touches, a lot of mid-range touches. And without him there, the Mavericks offense has definitely changed to where it looks more like the offense of 2 years ago, which was, at the time, the most efficient offense in the history of the NBA. And it's not that Porzingis played badly either. I mean, the guy averaged nearly 20 and 8. I mean, and 2 blocks. It's really hard to do. There aren't a whole lot of people on this earth who could do that in the NBA. But it just didn't work as efficiently and with regularity as they wanted it to. And so, you make the change, and then you go on this huge run, and a lot of these games have been road games for Dallas, and they've been able to succeed in those. And it's just all really, really good right now. And you know what? And from what I've seen and having looked at the boxes every night up there, he seems to be playing pretty well in Washington. But again, their team isn't very good either. So there's something to that, too.
Gonzaga's popped that lead open to 14, 7 minutes left against Georgia State. You are a sports junkie, an encyclopedia. You love it. You can't get enough of it. A lot of us are like that. Well, it's great to have Dickies Arena in Fort Worth hosting this NCAA the first weekend. How cool is that for the Fort Worth area?
It's fantastic. It's, again, when you build something like this, you build it in the hope that it will grow and become, that venue that people want to come to. David, this is the first time I've ever been here. I've never been here before, and just have not had the opportunity to get here, whether it be for a concert or whatever basketball games we might have been here. But it's a terrific building, a terrific facility. It's smaller than the American Airlines Center, so in many ways you feel like you're a lot closer to the floor. It's really cool, and I'm really happy for Fort Worth. I love Fort Worth. I love coming over here and spending time here. And the only thing that I'm disappointed in, quite frankly, is that they had 2 1-16 games of their 4. Because generally those games are not competitive. Usually the 8-9 games might be more competitive, but clearly Carolina and Marquette is not. You have to hope that Creighton and San Diego State will be tonight. But overall, I can't imagine why, if Dickies wants to hold first and second rounders again, that the NCAA won't consider them. I know Dallas loves having it as well, and it's just great for the region to be able to have 2 facilities like that can bring in events like this. And whether that's college basketball tournaments or concerts or what have you, multi-purpose buildings that taxpayers have paid their money into, and there is a tangible result that comes from that.
Chuck, thank you. I know you had a long night. Great call, and appreciate you being where you are.
I got one question I want to fit in here, Chuck. You being a Florida guy, I was curious your thoughts on Georgia coming and poaching Mike White, and where do you think the Gators turn?
Okay, this is now me speaking as a Gator.
Okay.
And not necessarily as a media member. although it still kind of applies. It happened on Sunday, and as I tweeted at the time, I said, I didn't think this day could get better. Between Selection Sunday, the Mavericks winning at the Horn, and then Mike White left Florida to go to Georgia. Mike White's time came and went really about 4 years ago. It was well past time, and I think he knew it, and basically he kind of did a shock of more. He got out of town before he got. And, he's a really nice guy. He runs a clean program, and there's a lot to be said for that in this time where there is not a whole lot of cleanliness in college basketball. But I do think that his coaching, his in-game coaching, the fact that players oftentimes were not developed, did not get any better, they were very frustrating to watch. There was a lot of street ball in the game. He couldn't get it out of them. And couldn't get them to play cohesively. They could play hard. They would always play hard. They just didn't always play well. And so I'm like anybody else. I mean, I'm curious. Are they going to bring Anthony Grant back from Dayton, who was with Billy Donovan as the Florida program was built into a two-time national champion back in 06 and 07? Do they go after, say, an Andy Enfield from USC, or I think he may have just agreed to a new contract that would keep him from leaving. But Andy Enfield really got his start at Florida Gulf Coast, knows the area. They need a guy who can sell the program and play an entertaining style of basketball. And a lot of the guys that you see being mentioned are guys that are kind of like Mike White, guys that have, maybe gotten to the NCAA tournament, maybe even won a game in the NCAA tournament, but never got to the second weekend. And the problem that Florida has right now is that a lot of teams in the SEC have now decided to care about basketball. Where for a long time, after Billy built the program, it was Florida and Kentucky, and you always knew that last game of the regular season was always going to be Florida and Kentucky. Well, Florida doesn't deserve to be in that game right now, and we saw that this year when Kentucky just mauled them in the final game of the season. You've got Tennessee's moved past them. Even you can even look at you look at the top 8 of the league. I mean, Florida was the second team in the league, really, behind Kentucky for a long time. Now, they may be the 6th or 7th best team in the league, and that's a pretty big hole to climb out of. That somebody's going to have to come in and try to compete with Kentucky and Cal, and try to compete with Bruce Pearl and Rick Barnes. And I mean, you think about the coaches who are in that league. It's fantastic. I mean, it's absolutely the best it's ever been. So this is a huge hire for Scott Strickland, and I really hope he gets it right.
Hey, Coop, thank you, buddy. You're the best. Thanks for your time.
Appreciate you. Take care.
Chuck Cooperstein, voice of the Mavericks, called the end of that game.
Tore himself away from the nail biter for us.
Yeah, 83-53. Carolina has just continued to coast. Gonzaga opening up now. A can on God, I just went blank.
Georgia State.
Georgia State. That game's getting out of control now, up by 22. Just like that, they've gone boat racing on Georgia State. So, of the games, if you've now joined us,